Hello and welcome to Football Victoria's Club Support Series. This series of webinars is designed to assist you and your club to navigate the challenges of running a community sporting organisation and provide the tools, education and resources that can help you throughout your journey. This webinar will be based on finance and how to develop a budget for your club's operations. Having an effective budget is a tool to help your club manage its finances and plan for a healthy and successful future. Given our game stretches right across the state and our nation, and in the spirit of reconciliation, we at Football Victoria would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. The aim of this session is to provide a basic understanding of what a budget is, as well as some of the steps as to how you can produce a budget within your club. Developing a budget doesn't have to be daunting. Step 1, keep it simple. In fact, the most important thing is that it is appropriate for your club and you use the budget regularly. One way to do this is to compare your actual income and costs to what you budgeted for or last year's figures. Step 2 is to make sure it links to your club's strategic plan or overall direction. Assess your longer term objectives for the club against your budget. If your projected funds don't match your ambitions, then you may need to revise your objectives or seek ways to boost your budget. The starting point for each football club every season should be the development of a budget, a tool to help your club to plan for a financially stable future. It is usually set for 1 year in advance, but can be set for a shorter or longer period of time. The budget will show how much income your club expects to receive in the next year and how much your club expects to spend in the next year. Also, the predicted surplus or deficit as a result of these actions. In its simplest form, a budget is the financial projection of the club's activities during the year. It is the treasurer's responsibility to prepare and then present the budget to the committee, giving the committee time to consider the way the club will operate for the year before giving its approval. The committee and the treasurer are ultimately responsible for overseeing the budget of the organisation and for ensuring that the club operates within a responsible, sustainable financial framework. The club should operate under a budget that can be flexible in responding to unforeseen events, including possible reductions in cash flow, and therefore regularly monitored and reviewed. In line with this responsibility, it is important that the committee conducts a budget planning process each year as part of its annual business planning. If you draw your attention to the screen, you'll see we have outlined potential benefits of having a budget, such as keeping finances under control. By setting a club budget, you should be able to identify potential financial difficulties before they happen. For example, if the budget shows the club is going to spend more than it receives, then plans can be made to raise more income or reduce costs. You might be able to avoid some nasty surprises. If you set up a routine of regularly checking the club's actual financial performance against the budget, you can immediately identify any problems and make plans to address additional costs incurred or lower income receipts than budgeted. It can help you make financial decisions. Your club leaders can make decisions about future expenditure based on how your club is performing against the budget. You can align the club goals. The budget will be set in line with your club's strategic objectives and will require input from lots of people in your club. Involving everyone helps to ensure each are working towards the same financial and strategic goals. It can also help to keep people motivated. A realistic and achievable budget can often motivate club leaders and members to meet and sometimes even beat the budgeted figures to sustain the club's future survival and improve their success. Prior to the beginning of each year, the treasurer should start preparing the budget estimates as a part of the club plan for the financial year. This process includes estimating income from registrations, canteen, etc., considering operational costs, setting any payroll costs if applicable, and any other expenses that may be encountered during the year. For preparing your club budget, cast your eyes back over previous financial reports from the last few years or seasons to identify the income the club receives and the type of payments it makes, as well as the usual timing that these transactions occur. Budgets are developed under the assumption and calculations of what your club thinks will happen during the year. You can start developing your club's budget by addressing the following questions. How many registrations are we expecting? Now, this might come in the form of teams or individual players in each age group. How much will registration fees cost for the upcoming year? This may include separate calculations or amounts for different age brackets, concession statuses, etc. that should all be taken into account in your calculations. What costs do your club incur directly related to training and competing? For example, the FV and FFA registration components, team entry, uniforms, coaching costs, and what unavoidable operating costs are directly associated with running the club. For example, facility hire, utilities such as gas and electricity, and other revenue and expenses directly related to club operations, such as canteen, gate admissions, functions, and merchandise sales. And finally, any other revenues directly related to the activities of the club, such as fundraising and sponsorship, including any expenses needed to be incurred to generate this revenue. For example, to gain a $5,000 sponsor, you may need to install signage worth $500 or $1,000, or to complete a chocolate drive fundraiser, you may need to outlay $2,000 in order to make $5,000 of income. There should also be information provided about how cost increases will be absorbed and will lead to increases in service charges, such as registration fees. A detailed report providing reasons for decisions may be attached to the draft budget for discussion. The projected surplus or deficit figure is a major focal point and is crucially important if you are building towards a large facility project or any other major financial proposition. If the committee wanted a bigger surplus, then they may consider reducing costs or increasing revenue. They may decide to add another fundraising activity to the social calendar for the year, or potentially raise fees to cover this. If necessary, the Treasurer will then revise the draft and present the amended draft budget at the next available committee meeting. Once adopted by the board or committee, this becomes the official operating budget for the club for the following financial year. And all committee members, employees, and decision makers must work within the financial limits stated or implied within the budget. The Treasurer is responsible for monitoring the club's expenditure, reviewing the actual and budgeted expenses, and reporting on the project of such expenditure. Financial reports will be prepared each month showing the year-to-date expenditure and its variation from the budget estimates, and indicating any increases or decreases in funding. A detailed commentary should be attached to the reports detailing reasons for variations and recommendations for any corrective action that should be required. In terms of using the budget, the final step for your club is to learn how to use your budget analysis to help you make sound financial decisions. For example, if you're spending too much, you could either 1, look for ways to cut costs, or 2, avoid spending money on anything that isn't essential to running your club. Or alternatively, if you have extra funds or a surplus, think about ways to reduce any debts you may have, creating a financial safety net, growing your club, or creating a nest egg for that all-important facility development project. Now, at the end of the year, your club should sit down and examine exactly how successful the budget was over the course of the year. Was it realistic? Was it too harsh? What needs to change for the next year? This will allow you to pull out any key points to help develop the following year's budget. For example, your fees may be too low or even too high, or you may need to include a more aggressive approach to sponsorship to increase your surplus. There are many things that might crop up that will vary from club to club. Just to finally recap what we have covered, a budget is a way of thinking ahead financially. It predicts the expenses you expect to incur and the revenue you hope to bring in. It is intended to minimize the risks of being faced with any nasty surprises and to provide a base to begin planning. In designing your budget framework, you always need to ask, what are the things you spend your money on, and how do you bring money into the club? This will allow you to estimate what the figures will be in each category. Now remember, you're not costing what you did last year or even what you're doing now. You want to know what it will cost to deliver on your objectives in the coming year and use that to plan for your future. So hopefully you have found this session valuable to understanding the basics of club finances and developing your budget. For further information on club finances or any other club support matters, simply visit the Football Victoria website and head to the club support portal. And please don't hesitate to contact your local club ambassador should you have a need for further assistance. Thank you for joining us once again, and I look forward to seeing you out by the pitch soon.